you're talking about the
Oh,
toters.
6, and I thought I was doing pretty good.
Okay.
Start.
Playing out there today.
Oh. Yeah.
So you put it enough.
Talk about something.
Oh, yeah, there's something on it.
Let it fall.
I have to fire another big kill this weekend, so I'm gonna be here. Burn up 10% of my propane tank in 8 hours. It is time.
Yeah, it is.
I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Highlands Town Board of Commissioners for Thursday, June 16th, 2022. And I would like for you, if you will, to join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Now, if we will stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance. Our first item on the agenda tonight will be the public comment period. If anyone would like to make a public comment, I invite you to come to the podium, state your name, and I'd appreciate you holding your comments to no more than 3 minutes. So do we have anyone who would like to make a public comment tonight?
Good evening. My name is James Worrell. I'm here on behalf of the Board of the Highlands Neighborhood Coalition. Mr. Mayor, Board of Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to make a brief comment. We're very appreciative of the immense amount of work that has gone into working on the issue of short-term rental houses in our neighborhoods. The Mayor, Board of Commissioners, the Planning Board, and the members of the town administration have all had major roles in this. And I know that the residents are very aware of the massive effort that you've had to undertake on this critical issue. Our goal and that of residents has been and remains a simple one. Highlands needs to have some zoning districts where residential neighborhoods are free of short-term rentals. Residents should be able to live in neighborhoods with other residents without STRs. STRs are a property use that should only be allowed in other zone districts, not in single family. That's our vision for Highlands and its neighborhoods. Arriving at that place, achieving that vision will preserve Highlands as a preferred destination for both first and second home owners. and residents, and as a preferred destination for tourists seeking a beautiful community to visit for a wonderful stay. Thank you for your time and for allowing me to participate.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to make a public comment? Hearing none, we will now move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is to review and approve the agenda. I think, Mr. Haynes, you have two requests.
We had a really good meeting on the red line version. I think Matt's going to pull one more thing for Jay to look at, and it was beneficial. I think Matt's going to tell you about something we learned going through it that works to all of our benefits. And then I appreciate, Lamar, your work on the policy about roads, and I'm going to write my questions down. Josh is going to give those to Jay, and we're going to talk about them next month.
So you want those two items tabled until next month?
Yes, sir, please.
Okay, good. All right, do we have any other changes or additions to the agenda? Okay, second. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye. Thank you
Aye.
very much. Okay, we have an agenda. The next item would be the approval of the May 19th regular meeting minutes. Do we have any corrections, additions, or clarifications to those minutes?
Mr. Mayor, I called Gibby and told her about one spelling mistake that she
Okay.
fixed.
Any other changes?
I'll move we approve the minutes of May 19th.
All right. We have a second. All right, all in favor? Oh, you do have a,
Yeah, I'm sorry, my screen here. I actually wanted to bring up something on our schedule of fees
okay,
that I think we ought to talk about. NSF.
okay.
We'll talk about
Is
that
it
first.
a change of a policy change or something that's incorrect in the minutes? Okay. So we can bring that up at the budget discussion?
Because that's where all the fees are.
Okay, all right, very good. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, okay, all in favor of approving the May 19th minutes, please raise your hand and indicate by saying aye. Thank you very much. The next would be the approval of the June 10th special meeting minutes. Do we have any corrections or additions to those minutes?
Move we approve the minutes of June 10th.
Second, all right. All in favor, please raise your hand and indicate by saying aye. You're absent. Okay, thank you. Okay, the next will be reports, and let me start with the mayor's report. Just recently, Josh and I did an overnight trip to Raleigh. We attended the legislative dinner that the League of Municipalities puts on. We had dinner at our table with Kevin Corbin and Carl Gillespie, our representatives, where we discussed some basic ideas and issues. We talked about Medicaid expansion, which the legislature was contemplating, and I indicated that, I support that. We talked about, is there any STR legislation that's pending? And their feedback was that they didn't anticipate that on this short-term session. And the feeling was that the legislators wanted to get through the short term and adjourn without any long discussions and procedures. So I think they will be having, in fact, a short session. The other thing that I'd like to update folks on, we had a meeting with some DOT engineers today. And we talked about several things. One, we've gotten some feedback from citizens about painted crosswalks. Josh will kind of give you a summary of where we are on that issue later on. Engineers also talked about some issues in the floodplain. For example, the Trillium Complex, the pipes there. There's been a concern now for well over a decade about is there a way to improve the drainage there? The engineers did a hydrology study. I've talked with them now several times, and they still stand by the hydrology study that in a flash flood, that even having a larger pipe won't really make a difference when all of that rain comes flying off the mountain. So we had that discussion.
You're talking about
Yes. Mhm. They were saying that possibly if you were to raise the road about 15 feet, and put a major span bridge, it might make a difference. But one of the problems they say is the outflow. It's not just coming in, but how it gets down. Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the problems we have in several areas. And then we talked about the possibility of the town taking over some roads. We've talked about Wingina. That is a problematic road with unpaved, and it washes a lot into Mirror Lake. We were in discussions, and they're open to that. The other one was the Upper Lake Road, where we paved our section, but there's a small section going to Bowery, and they would be willing to turn that over. It's a complex reason why they even have that that part of the road as a state road even now. But we'll be reviewing that probably with the Public Works Committee at a later date. And then also we talked about the Bear Pen Road. They have a right of way to pave Bear Pen from Upper Lake all the way down to Chestnut. They have done surveys. Now they've done environmental impact studies. They will be now coming up with a design and plan to pave that part of Bear Pen, which will help with the siltation and runoff that we have that comes all the way down Chestnut. They'll be working with Lamar Nix in coordinating their work with relocating our utilities on that road, but that isn't something that's going to happen this week or even this month, but it is a work in progress with DOT. So that's what my report is, except for one other thing. I will not be here at our next meeting, July the 21st. And I would hope that our pro tem mayor would be willing to preside at the meeting. Buzz being the presiding officer, because I am going with my wife to take our growing grandchildren to the beach. We've done this every year. The only time we could find a hotel room was on that week, and I was told that I would be taking the grandchildren to the beach. So that's my no discussion. So I will be missing that meeting, but I will be back at a later time. So that's my report. I will now turn it over to the commissioners and the committee reports. The commissioners have anything to report? No reports? I will then go to the town manager, Josh Ward, with his report, and he will update on the crosswalk painting issue.
Yes, we did have a meeting today with DOT, and we did have a couple of emails today concerning crosswalks around town. A lot of our streets are DOT streets. A lot of them are town streets. We usually paint those town streets around town. DOT takes care of theirs. DOT has a new standard where they slash the crosswalks. You've seen them over toward the school. We typically had the crosswalks in the middle of town where we could paint the center of them. They allowed us to do that on Main Street last year when they resurfaced, so we could repaint. Had some issues getting the paint and things like that to paint those back to brick color, but the concern is in some of the other places around town, the crosswalks are not as visible with the way we are currently painting it with our staff. So Lamar and I talked this afternoon with the DOT about doing the thermal slash crosswalks like the DOT does. We're going to have to get some pricing, some quotes through a couple of painting contractors to see exactly how much that would cost. Go for how many we have and get some quotes, and that would be a budget amendment to come later if the board chooses to do that. Right now, the DOT is having a hard time finding crews to paint. So it might take us a little while to get quotes, might take us a little while to actually get the work done if we decide to do it. That's where we're going right now. Get some quotes on that. And Lamar, do you have an idea?
There's some more important ones in there.
We would probably want to do them all. The email today showed a couple of pictures of one that recently done by our. But I think it would be better to have, crew come in and do thermal, which is the raised paint. It's heated by a machine, which put down, lasts a lot longer. I feel it's probably the direction to go. So we'll get some quotes and then we'll come back later. The ADA transition plan is well underway. They did the field inspections this week. Michael and I met with them, which is J&T selected. They have a lot of our data from the comprehensive plan. They've been around and looked at all the sidewalks in town. They've been around all the town facilities. We did get them to come in this facility here this week, and we made them over here, Michael and I. We've been talking about redoing the kitchen, redoing the bathroom, make sure they're compliant. They saw a few things, not as bad as what we thought. Lester has worked with Paul Smith to come up with a design for ADA standards here. And there's actually a couple of folks trying to get us quotes right now. Hopefully we'll be back soon with that, and then we coincide maybe with Doc Wilson and his group with the kitchen. Later on in the year. I will say that there is an ADA survey that they have put online on the town's website, highlandsnc.org. It's also been in the newspaper. I think there's been, Michael, 70 already have been turned in. So please get on there and take that survey. It'll be good to have the information. Also, town hall will be closed Monday, July 4th for observation and defense.
Okay. Thank you very much, Josh. Our next item, number 7, consent agenda. Do we have any questions or comments about the material in the consent agenda? Mr. Haynes.
I'd like to vote on the treasurer's report separately and have a few questions. Consent to everything else.
Okay, what are the questions?
Josh, how much have we spent on attorneys this year? I can see it here, but Van Winkle and Essex Richards and Coward, do you have the breakdown? Yes, I saw that, 95,000. I saw that. I just, Mr. Mayor, I don't appreciate, I asked that, I'm trying to be as kind as I possibly can. On the 19th of May, I asked that Craig Justice come. That was not honored. On the 10th of June, I asked if I could ask him a question before we voted. That wasn't allowed, so I'm not going to vote to approve the treasurer's report. I'm sure it's accurate, but I'm not going to vote to approve it.
Okay.
So you want to call for the vote?
I will certainly do that. Gibby, is this procedural to call for a vote on the treasurer's report and the consent agenda? Okay. All right. That has to be a motion. Okay, we'll pull that out of separate item. With that being pulled out, do I have a motion that we approve the consent agenda, all the other items that are in the consent agenda?
So moved.
All in favor, please indicate by signifying by saying aye. Okay, thank you very much. Now we have the treasurer's report. Do we have a
Second.
any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye, raising your hands. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. We have 4 for and 1 opposed. Okay. The next item will be a public hearing for the town budget for fiscal year 2022 and 23. Do I have a motion that we open this public hearing? Second, okay. All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand and saying aye. Thank you. We now have the public hearing open. The first item will be staff comments and recommendation.
Mr. Mayor, since the budget presentation on May 19th, the Morewood Road Waterline Improvement Project was completed, removing $550,000 from the capital projects fund expenditures. Also, the majority of the walkway access to the clear well at the water treatment plant has been completed, reducing the expenditure within the water treatment plant capital, $135,000. The fiber lease payments were added as revenue within the general fund, totaling $212,500 for the last 2 quarters of fiscal year 2022. The total budget proposed is $27,392,428.
Okay. And that is a balanced budget.
May I ask Josh one question?
You sure can.
Josh, I appreciate you providing the red line drawings, and I think you and I agree that we discovered that we can receive 2 payments because the language was complicated in the contract as you went back and forth. So that's a direct benefit of me being allowed to read the red line documents, Mr. Mayor. And goes works to the benefit of them.
Okay. Any other comments? Hearing none, the next item would be public comments. So I will open the floor now. If anyone would like to come and make a comment about the proposed budget, feel free to come to the podium, state your name, and make your comment. Any comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion to close the public hearing? All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand and saying aye. Thank you very much. The next item will be council item on the budget.
Can I ask Josh a question?
Sure.
Josh, I think you've got 20,000 budgeted next year for legal. That's right. Do we think that's enough?
It'll be handled the same way that it's been handled this year. There'll be budget.
Any other questions of Josh?
Jimmy, you want to ask about fees or insufficient
Yeah.
checks?
Yes, sir.
Well, I was doing a little bit of research, page 44 of our agenda. Charges on return check fees were set to $620. Homework and check nationwide is $35.40. In fact, I don't know who we do business with locally. First Bank, could not get a figure out of them at how much? 7. Okay. First Citizens charges 36. $7 for interest.
Does that answer your question? Okay.
As long as we continue.
Before we, Mr. Mayor, I hope, I'm glad we've got a fire department. I'm glad we've got bedrooms. When I got home from the meeting last month, I found my wife laying on the floor. I had to call EMS. And when you do that here, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if they're in Asheville, you don't know if they're in Franklin, you don't know what's going to happen. And fortunately, they came right away. But I think it's really important that we man that fire station with full-time EMTs and firefighters too, as soon as we can.
My response would be the EMS system is a responsibility of the county. If the county, if they're not able to have adequate staffing, that's something that I think they should,
Yes.
address initially on this.
But, fire department can be a first responder and they can save lives. And I think it's really would be something as we get into the budget year, that we try to do as quick as we can.
Okay. All right. Any other comments about the budget? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve it. Second. Hearing a second, all in favor indicate by raising your hand and signify by saying aye. Thank you, and opposed. Thank you. We have one opposed, Mr. Haynes. All right, let us now move on to the next item. It's the end of the year budget amendments. We're approaching July 1st, where we need to make sure all of our counts are resolved and balanced. So Rebecca Schuler.
Yes, one different than what you had. This is for the ARP funds. When I got looking at it a little bit more. Because when it came in, it had to go into the central depository. So it has a line item revenue in the general fund, and then we transferred it to its own checking account. And so instead of being a fund balance appropriated that you had in your packet, it actually came out of the line item. So that's really the only difference. It's still going to reduce the transfer from the electric into the capital, that from the general. And it's still going to reduce it in the electric fund here, and which is come from ARP and interest. And the amount went up just a little bit because of interest. So that's the only difference that you don't.
Okay.
Any questions?
We have a number of budget amendments.
There was several, because we always try to make sure the line items are covered, and with the projects that didn't get finished this year, some from last year, we were talking about.
Shall we approve them all as a package?
You can do them all as a package. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Any questions?
Of course,
Gibby's looking for.
Yeah, I think
The
we
one
already had
for the
this.
capital projects, it was for 156,493 something. Yeah,
and you're asking for 95,000 more for legal.
yes. Figured the right number because of how much we invested.
So
And that's what we've already used, and that's extra just in case we continue.
question about that.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the budget amendments as presented. Second, any further discussion? All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand and signify by saying aye. Thank you. One opposed, Mr. Haynes. Okay. The next item will be item 10, sanctuary of the, on the first subdivision preliminary plat approval. Sanctuary being the name of the subdivision. Mr. Mathis.
Thank you, Mayor. So a subdivision application was submitted to the Planning Department by Sanctuary Developers LLC concerning a property subdivision request at the corner of First Street and Oak Street.
My memo is incorrect. The proposal is to adjust the property line at 154 North First Street, which is Lot 1 on the preliminary plat. And then the property at the corner of Oak Street, or First and Oak Street, the 2.45 acre parcel will be subdivided into 5 lots. So the overall subdivision is going to be 3.05 acres into 6 lots. So the property at 154 North First Street is currently B3 commercial and is located in the watershed 3, balance of the watershed. The minimum lot size required for this zoning and watershed district is 0.50 acres. The property at the corner of First and Oak is zoned R2 residential and is located in the watershed 3, balance of the watershed. The minimum lot size required for this is also half an acre. According to the preliminary plat prepared by Aaron Garrett Land Surveying, the 3.05 acre parcel will be split into 6 lots. The first lot is 0.53 acres. The second lot is 0.50 acres. Third lot, 0.50 acres. Fourth lot, 0.51. Fifth lot, 0.50, and sixth lot, 0.51. Each lot will have its own driveway and will be served by a subdivision road. All lots will connect to town water, sewer, and electric. The town's Public Work Director, Lamar Nix, has reviewed the engineering, and his approval letter has accompanied this memo. The planning board reviewed this item on Tuesday, June 7th during a special meeting. The recommendation is to approve the preliminary plat as submitted. The recommendation is to approve the sanctuary on First preliminary plat. And we also have Jeff Weller here today with us if you've got any questions.
Okay.
Looks like the
Yes, there's a hammerhead T for a turnaround right there at the right.
so
Yes, and that does meet the specifications, Lamar. Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, Alice. I asked for if the road dead ended.
I thought there was a possibility the road could go through.
Jeff, do you want to answer on that one? Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever you'd like to do, Jeff.
It is, may not be public knowledge, but we do have the adjoining property under contract, but it has 14 plus heirs. So it's in the court system. There's nothing guaranteed. And if so, then we would come back with phase 2, which would loop through back to Oak Street. But at this time, it's dead end. So we will have a turnaround, et cetera. If that happens, then we'll certainly get back to you with phase 2.
Amy's right. That would be better to have that work than just a bit.
It would certainly be my preference, but it's not up to me at the moment.
Sure.
Any other questions of Jeff or Michael?
Move for approval.
Okay, we'll have a second. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand and signify by saying aye. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. All right. Jeff? It's a private road. They still have to meet the permeability thing. Yeah. Mhm. Okay. That's right. Okay, thank you, Joe. All right, the next item, item 11, the comprehensive plan final presentation. Allison Evans of Stewart Planning Services. Allison?
Evening, everyone. I see familiar faces. It's been a little while. I think Josh has a presentation queued up, so we can get this started. We don't want to keep you all too long.
It's behind.
I'm just going to cheat a little, I guess.
There it goes.
So Josh, this has got the summary of the change. That's the Richard. This has got the summary of the changes, but that's Richard. But they're in there.
Yeah, no, that works too. I'm just trying to figure out the best angle. Um, All right, so if we can go to the next slide. So we're just going to take you through, what we've been through we kicked this off, I believe, in spring, summer 2020. We've been, here a couple times working on the plan, working with all of you, working with the steering committee, working with the residents of the town to put this together. So we're going to go through that process a little bit, present the vision and goals that we came up with for the plan, and just look at the recommendations a little bit. They should all be familiar. Not much has changed. So if you go to the next slide, just a little, refresh for everyone. This comprehensive plan is a long-range plan for the town. It's looking 10 to 20 years in the future. Making forecasts based on what we have now. It's guidance for, decisions made here, decisions made administratively, decisions made when setting new policies. It's collaborative. It's a product of the community, and everyone came out really well and supported this plan and gave us great input throughout the process. And it is policy, not regulatory. So this is just, setting the steps in motion to pursue further changes and action for the town. It's not a rezoning. It's not, and a whole throwing out the ordinances we have now. It's just our vision for the future. So next slide. It was a big public engagement process for the plan. We had 5 steering committee meetings. Thank you everyone for spending some evenings with us talking about this plan. We had stakeholder interviews here in this room, different focus groups from around town of interested parties, some experts that we wouldn't normally get to talk to, had some real great conversations. We had 2 public meetings. They were held here and virtually, one in the beginning of the process and one towards the end with the draft plan. We had over 1,000 community survey responses, and we also ran a business owner survey. So, with that, it gets a little higher, and we've had over 1,700 project website visits that we've been updating throughout this process. Next slide. So some themes we heard from that public input along the way was people really value and want to see more walkability, and with the ADA transition plan, that's going to help that effort as well. People love the town's natural resources. That's why people are here. They want to protect them. Recreation, getting outside, engaging with the nature the town has to offer, and also in more active, structured ways like pickleball courts and things to that effect. Downtown parking was a common theme that came up, and we have some suggestions for that within the plan. Town character, people love the town character and they want to protect it. And short-term rentals, of course, came up during this process, and we included some recommendations that I think are reflected in what the town's doing now. So the vision and goals for the plan that we came up with were: Highlands is a vibrant and scenic mountain community founded on the beauty of the plateau's natural environment, the uniqueness of its village character, and the richness of the area's culture and history. We have a set of 6 goals that guided our recommendations. They include town character, environmental preservation, culture and history, the pedestrian focus, partnerships, how can the town work with partners to, implement this plan, and the local economy. People love the local business community here. It's very unique, and they want to be able to support those and keep those intact. So looking over the recommendations, of course, a big part of this plan is the future land use map, the guiding land use policy document, 4-1 rezonings and special use permits, things of that nature come up. A lot of that town is the 2 colors of green, the conservation design and parks and open space. Very low density, a lot of the town's not buildable. We have slopes, we have, watershed restrictions. So it's taking those into account. A low density residential area, which is that single family area that was discussed before. And then those pink areas are some neighborhood mixed use areas like Highlands Plaza and maybe the golf courses that are, they're not purely residential. There's maybe some commercial functions in there. So those were earmarked in that neighborhood mixed use. And then the other part, zooming in on downtown on the next slide, is that core, that downtown business district, those blocks where these sidewalks are filled up in the summer and all those local businesses are really located. So, we have that, that area is envisioned as the heart of downtown, that mountain village character, keep that mixed use flavor with active ground floors and the pedestrian emphasis. And then surrounding that, we have that downtown support because, there is a character change as you radiate down from the center of downtown. So that's a mixed use area, slightly less intense, slightly less built up. It has a little more flexible with slightly larger building footprints and a mix of housing options also encouraged in that area. So we're implementing these applying this future land use map through the recommendations in this land use and housing section. Just pulling a couple of recommendations out. We want to maintain the scale of existing development. Scale is a great contributor to character, not introducing 6-story buildings downtown, for example. Preserving historic buildings and neighborhoods. We have a historic resources map within the plan. There's a lot of dots on it. It's a very historic town and we want to keep that intact. Reinforce the character of different commercial areas. So like I mentioned before, those different areas with the different flavors throughout, downtown and as we radiate outwards. We want to maintain growth along those major entry corridors, require parking, storage areas and large buildings to be screened from view. Some things you can see where when they were built within the ETJ standards, when the town had its ETJ, it really influenced the character of what was built during those times. And there's ways that the town, when you enter the town limits, we can say, hey, I'm here. This looks, lovely, reflective of the town character that everyone loves. Next slide. Some land use recommendations, of course, housing came up a lot during this whole plan. Continue those planned cluster conservation developments. Maybe we can consider alternative housing types like pocket neighborhoods, similar to what's across the street, but maybe at a smaller scale for people who are looking for something a little smaller, a little cozier. Encourage a limited mix of housing types in defined areas near town. We do have those incidental apartments in that B1 and B2 districts. Continue uses like that with maybe some limited multifamily opportunities where it's contextually appropriate. And so we introduced some criteria if the town ever considered allowing accessory dwelling units formally. For that recreation and natural resources section, of course, to support recreation options and outdoor tourism, that's what brings people here, both to live and to visit. We want to protect the views and the natural resources, encourage that open space preservation and tree protection, when new building is occurring. Of course, protect the plateau's water quality. We talked a lot about drainage coming out now and runoff. So continuing those efforts to improve whatever we can to offset what we're seeing coming into our lakes and rivers. Low impact development regulations, stormwater regulations, preserving our riparian areas, very important. Next slide. And then we have a whole section for downtown and tourism because it is, so much of the lifeblood of the town. It's not the whole town. But, this section looks at more urban design, walkability, pedestrian access, like we saw in the goals. So to maintain and enhance that small town feel and village character, improve the pedestrian facilities, lighting and wayfinding, manage public parking and city opportunities for how we can either expand that or, better access the ones we have available now. And we have some suggestions for preserving and enhancing the town's parks and green infrastructure, getting some green space near downtown where those people are. We do have the couple areas in and around downtown, but when people are out and about, how can we, give them a little more opportunity maybe to sit down in some shade as they're visiting. So, in this vein, we have a couple of concepts throughout the plan. I'm not including them all here, but, for example, to analyze downtown, we have this map of, things the town can consider. Those red dots are intersection and roadway improvements. A lot of this is already underway. That the yellow is streetscape improvements. That ADA plan will really help address those. The green space improvements and redevelopment opportunities and improvements in some parcels where the town could have influence. If you go to the next slide, one of those development opportunities is, what could we do with this Maple Street block? What could fit there and how could it, serve the most urgent needs that the town has now? So, we looked at street improvements. How could we get surface parking or a parking deck on there? How would that fit? It is a restricted site. You've got topography. It's limited in scale, but, are there ways that the town could introduce that on that site? And, could that site accommodate a park or more commercial development? These are not, these are not plans. These are not, coming in next year, but it helps vision and get the town thinking, in a way of, being proactive about utilizing these land resources that they have because they're so valuable here. And if you go to the next slide, transportation, a lot of the transportation in this particular plan is more focused on pedestrian accessibility and greenway expansion and coordination. How can we have those intersection improvements along Main Street, get people crossing the road, people bunching up when we're on the corners? How can we maintain existing parking and study future parking options, filling those sidewalk gaps? I'm sure the ADA plan will identify those as well. And how can we continue to improve this greenway system so people have a way to access nature accessibly? And finally, infrastructure and public services. These aren't maybe the most glamorous parts of the plan, but it's what keeps it running. And they're, the best thing is when you don't have to think about turning on your water tap or where your stormwater goes or your electric service. So we have some recommendations regarding water, sewer, and electric in there. I heard fire coverage mentioned a few minutes ago. We have a recommendation in there to study how additional personnel could be added to transfer to that 24-hour coverage. And, the same thing for the town's police force. They have personnel needs, they have equipment needs, policing downtown, the speeds and community policing efforts. How could they, re-strategize and work with the town to address some of the things we're seeing on the ground? So that's our infrastructure and public services section. So that was the quick rundown of the plan. I would love to head into discussion with you now all. I do have a note about the public hearing that'll be occurring on June 30th at 6 p.m. here for that plan prior to its adoption. But thank you all. And if I could would love to take any questions or comments that you have.
I have a question to Josh, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I want to make sure, that we got all these sides on short-term rentals, and I know. So Josh, you're saying the website will have the updated version with the changes that Essex Richards recommended?
Yes, the website has the most recent plan.
Does it show the changes on short-term rentals? So Kim, you hear that? That's everybody's gonna be interested in reading that. See what it- all right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions about it?
I would just like to thank Jake and Allison for all they've done for over a year now. They've been great to work with, have a lot of great subcontractors that we work with. I would just like to thank them for that. Please pass that on to Jake. Sorry you couldn't be here tonight. as well.
Yeah, he had a family obligation, but yeah, thank you to everyone who's put time in, whether you took a survey or came to a meeting or, sat through several steering committee meetings on beautiful evenings when you could have been doing something more interesting. And Josh and Michael for all their hard work on this.
Thank you, Alex.
All right.
Would appreciate the presentation.
So, oh, yeah.
Just the presentation. Okay. The next item is the UDO amendment update, and I will do that update, and I'll be real brief and specific. As we just pointed out, we set a public hearing on June the 10th for on June 10th, we set the hearing, and it will be on June 30th at 6 p.m. It will be advertised in the Highlander, and we will have that public hearing and adoption plan at that time. Also, on June 30th, the plan is to vote to send the amendments to the planning board for review and recommendation of the short-term rental amendments to the UDO. As everyone knows, we've had to start this whole process over due to a technical miscommunication where proper notice was not given in the newspaper. So now we're at a point where we will have to review and do this whole process over again. And hopefully by June the 30th, we will have those recommendations for the planning board ready to review. And we will also set a public hearing for the UDO amendments for July the 28th. And I say this, that is the plan. There's always possibility of some changes here. On July the 12th, the planning board will first review the amendments that we have sent to them, and then they will provide a recommendation, and that is 5:30 p.m. at this community building on July the 12th. If the planning board needs more time or needs to meet more than once, then certainly that will be an option for them to do that. We will also be advertising on July 14th and 21st, the public hearing for the UDO amendments. And then we will hold a public hearing on the 28th of July for those amendments at 6 p.m. in the community building right here. We will continue this though to August 18th if the planning board needs more time to develop their recommendation on July 12th. So that is an outline of how we will proceed in restarting this whole process where we address the short-term rental issue and the amendments to it. But like I say, that is the schedule. But as we have learned in this process, if we need to make some changes as we go and extend it, we certainly will do that.
Is Essex Richards going to attend the planning board's meeting? I think that would be very wise. I know they were trying to make legal interpretations last time. So I think it's wise to have them available by Zoom or something.
We've had that discussion. But it's not Essex Ridge.
Can Jay be at that meeting, John? Same.
No, okay. Planning board discuss.
Questions?
We have discussed that.
Okay, any other comments about the proposed, the plan and schedule? And for the newspapers, anything that we set aside at this point, what I'm reading from, we will share. Okay. All right, the next item, number 13, Literacy Council fundraiser event request, Bonnie Potts. No, you're not. But Lester, we'll be happy to hear from you.
Afternoon, you couldn't be here, so we've got a request from the Literacy Council to use Founder's Park for a fundraiser. They met with the rec committee on June 1st. The rec committee approved it, but they are asking for the street to be closed to host a concert. They won't sell alcohol, and they would also like to have permission to bring a food truck in for this event. And since the street's being closed and alcohol is involved, they had to come before the whole town board for that. It will be a public event. It's not a ticketed event. And all proceeds go to the Literacy Council. And their hope is once they do that, they're doing a fundraiser where they're selling golf balls. And they're going to do a golf ball drop at the ball field following that event and giving away a prize for a cash prize for whoever's ball lands closest to the dot in the ball field. Interesting way of making money, but it. And the rec committee approved it, but
So you don't.
I don't see any problems with it. They've got an insurance policy for all their events that are held off-site or on other side. And they're talking with Sissy and Mike Jolly with the police department to make sure they got all the permits, everything they need.
What's the date?
I'm sorry, it's Friday, July 15th from 4 to 8. Yes, with permission from the town board for that. And I think they can do that for a event, not just rec.
Well, I mean, we looked at it as if a food truck, it's no different than in the case of the Founder's Park doing the shrimp one. Bigger for that. I mean, I don't see why a food truck for a specific event. It's not like we're opening it up to where they can just park there.
Bringing
Yeah.
equipment to the park,
Yeah.
Motoring Festival.
Proceeds for the food truck going to.
All proceeds go to the Literacy Council.
I moved the, years ago.
15th, Friday.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand and signify by saying aye. Thank you. Thank you, Lester. Appreciate it. All right. Item 14, Chamber of Commerce discussion. We have 3 sub-items that we need to cover tonight. The renewal of the lease agreement, the stage heaters in Kelsey Hutchinson Park, and also EV charging stations, electric vehicle charging stations. So you have in your packet the former contract, also a breakdown of maintenance costs and improvements that the chamber has done in your period.
Josh is just handing out, I just thought it'd be easier. The teacher in me, I can say things to you, but if you're a visual learner, you might want to read it. And then I have some information about the stage heaters and the car chargers that we're going to talk about next. So the Highlands Chamber of Commerce is asking the town of Highlands to renew our building lease as a 10-year, $1 a month agreement as we have held since 2012. Excuse me, that's $1 a year. We believe that as your past and future tenant, we meet the NC requirement for government buildings as public purpose. We have cared, maintained, and greatly improved your asset listed at 108 Main Street. We have assisted you in maintaining the legacy intended by the anonymous donor. We are preserving a cherished historical landmark and the only example of a residential home that's still on Main Street. We are assisting you in maintaining the small town as we were just talking about in the plan, village image of Highlands. And we are providing a beautiful welcoming entrance to the town at the main entrance corridor. We have served the full-time residents, second homeowners, businesses, and visitors, and have increased the value of your original investment of $700,000 to approximately 1.6 million after we finish our current landscape project, which will be finished this summer. So that's like a 78% increase. Our understanding is that the town is considering charging rent to all government building tenants. This came as a very big surprise at the end of our fiscal year when our annual budgets have already been approved for implementation beginning July 1st. We're also greatly concerned about taking on additional operating expenses as we anticipate the impact of volatile markets, gas prices, and a 5.9 cost of living increase for 2022. As you are aware, our funding comes from two primary sources: chamber memberships and occupancy tax paid by the visitors, both of which will be greatly impacted by the anticipated economic challenges. We are already seeing indications of a flattening in occupancy tax income and currently anticipate a decline in this income stream for the fiscal year of 22-23. Provided for your consideration tonight is a summary of our financial investment in your property totaling $222,400. This number does not include the additional expenses of the current landscape project that will end up costing us about $100,000 when we're finished. And there's also another roof repair that I'm actually waiting for the estimate on right now. So once the landscape is finished, and we're looking at approximately $322,000 that we have voluntarily invested into the building. A town savings of $32,200 each year for 10 years. If the town needs to collect rent from town-owned building tenants, we ask that you take on the task of your staff vetting these vendors that we've been using and handling the contracts and monitoring the projects, operations, and paying for the maintenance, the repairs, and improvements using town funds and staff time. As it stands, we are doing all the work, paying for all the expenses, saving you time and money. With a continuation of the current lease, you continue the growth in the value of your property investment and save time, staff time, and money for the town. Since I was hired in 2019, the Chamber Board and I have worked very hard to be a partner with the town and complete projects to assist in the preservation improvements of not only our building, but also the community of Highlands, which lowers some of the town expenses as well. In fact, we are currently in conversation just this week, again, with the mayor, Josh, the town manager, and also Lamar was brought in this week as the town engineer about some of the future projects that we're researching, such as additional aesthetic improvements of landscapes on multiple town properties, upgrading the stage at the park, the addition of environmentally friendly EV car chargers, updating of wayfinding, especially for parking, the potential for a downtown Wi-Fi, and cleaning downtown public trash receptacles. We want to invest our funds in Highlands as a great place to live and work, and to be a partner with the town on what is needed by the town. Our strategic plan, adopted in January of this year, reflects the common concerns and values of the Chamber and the town of Highlands. It was great to sit here and listen to the plan again, because it is, I've shared our strategic plan with Josh and Pat. I hope you guys will pass it on. I'm happy to send it to all of you, but it's very similar. So as I have previously requested, and the mayor and I have recently discussed, we would greatly value a meeting with both boards to discuss our common interest and how we can work together. I urge you to continue our current lease arrangement of mutual benefit and let us serve as an example of community partnerships for the betterment of Highlands.
Thank you.
So on to the stage,
Can I ask
heaters.
a question before we go to the next thing? I don't see rental income in the budget, Josh. Are you planning to charge them rent?
Board decision.
Oh, I hadn't heard anything about that. First I heard about it.
Are there any other questions?
Do we want to deal with these one at a time, or do we want?
I think probably one at a time.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we're on the lease agreement.
I'll be honest, my personal opinion is I was the chairman of the chamber back in 2012 when the anonymous donor came forward with that building, and I think that that person was very clear on what they wanted that building to be used for. And I think I guess I assume I'd like to leave it like it is now, and then have the chamber continue with the upkeep of the building and keep us out of it, continue to lease it. So it's a 10-year lease. Right?
It's November.
I heard it. Is that a motion?
Well, just discussion.
Just a discussion at this point.
I'll make it first.
I have concern that, while I certainly appreciate everything the chamber has done, averaged out over the 10 years, the monthly rent shakes out to $1,850 a month. It seemed to me that that's dramatically less than the buildings back on Main Street. I understand the chamber is certainly an asset to the town of Highlands. $1,853 a month. You gave the value of the rent an actual, a real market value, then that's a fairly nominal figure.
Yes, except that the 1,800 would be at the 222,000.
Exactly.
When you go ahead and add in what we're about to write a check for the landscaping and the signs and the repaving and lining of the parking lot and all that, it's at least another 100,000. It doesn't include the quote for the roof repair that I'm about to do. So even if you just went to the 322,000, then you're talking 30,000 annually.
Right.
You know, so it ends up being a lot of money. And if we have to pay that out in rent, that means we have less money to do the projects that we're really hoping to do.
It's an old building too, I can tell you that.
It's a really old building. It's in much better shape now. We had to do a complete mold remediation. We had a rat infestation that ripped out all of our insulation. I mean, it's just been project after project after project. So it's in much better condition now. It's a great old building. I love it. And it's got a great history to it, and it's really just a special place.
Any other discussion? It's due in November. I think prevent us from a renewal for November at this point. Or we could wait. Pleasure of the board.
I'll make that we approve the renewal at this point and redo it to the same standards as it is today.
Second. Any other discussion?
I'd like to make a motion that we table it until I have
Well, we have this motion on the floor from Commissioner Stevens. Are you going to withdraw your motion?
No, I'd like my motion to stay.
I think you have to vote on a motion to table.
Yeah.
Is that right? I couldn't hear, I'm sorry about this.
On the first.
Okay. All right,
Okay. So we're gonna
call for the vote.
call
Mr.
the question. All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand, signifying by saying aye. And opposed. 3. All right. Now, we will entertain a motion.
Well, big table, we just-
Excuse
we
me.
have till November to do it.
Till November, okay.
May I ask a question?
Entertain a new motion.
Can we schedule this meeting fairly soon that you were talking about?
We had talked about the end
we
of
do.
July to get the boards
In
together.
July or
Yeah.
August.
July is just, June and July is a crazy
Right.
time, for our business owners, so if we can fit out just a bit and let them at least get through most of July, that will help.
Get it. Still have time to address.
So this will continue and we'll, yeah. We've been talking about trying to have a joint meeting and, we. Okay, all right, thank you. We can work on doing a joint meeting. We just could not pull it together for this particular meeting or this month. So what we can do is, have a joint meeting and then revisit the lease issue before November and make a decision. Is everybody in agreement with things? Wait. Okay. All right. The
And-
next item would be the Kelsey Hutchinson Park stage heaters.
And for any, Amy, you're the one that said you'd like to study the numbers. I'm happy to provide anything from our financials you'd like to see.
Okay, appreciate that, thanks.
Okay, stage heaters. So we have been working on the idea of installing stage heaters so that we can use the stage a little bit longer and we can keep the musicians a little more comfortable, especially at Christmas time, for the Christmas tree lighting, those poor guys are out there trying to play, instruments with fingers that are frozen and it gets a little bit difficult. And even into October, some of the nights get cool. So we've been doing research on this and we have originally started with dock and thinking that we would do gas because that's what the park people, I had been talking a lot with Hank about it, had suggested, and it ended up being that was going to be very difficult. So then we changed gears and said, okay, well, let's go to electric. So we have taken this to the park and to the rec committee as well. To do this, we will need to improve the ampage service at the stage, which we really need anyway. A lot of our bands are having trouble because there's not really enough ampage there to plug all the speakers and the instruments and those types of things in. So that would be part of what we'd be paying for. And then part of the installation would also include a locked box with a timer. That was a great suggestion that came from Josh. We were concerned about, the heaters being turned off. And we were going to take responsibility for it, and we still will, but we can actually have a locked box. And when it's turned on, you can set it for 2 hours or an hour or whatever it is that you need, and it will automatically shut off. And then we can certainly check it to make sure that it has shut off before we left. We had, as I mentioned, meetings with Lester from the rec park and Hank Ross from Friends of Founders Park, and have the electrician out. So we have all the quotes for the heaters, for all of the electrical service. That's what's included in your package here, just so you can see all of that. And the total comes up to $5,154.03, which is another project we'll be paying for that upgrade to our stage. The only thing we're waiting on right now is to find out, because we'll be paying for the electricity for this. We just need to know, what that kilowatt hour is going to run us, when we're running the heaters, so that we can cover that cost if we need to.
Okay, any other questions concerning the heaters?
The meter is, there's not a separate meter, and that's what we were trying to get away from, is they proposed at first a central service, We're trying to get away from that. The concern was with the electric meters, and some people leave one, say, I come to, if somebody's buying a Monday, it's going, which account, so that's why we felt like, instead of doing a separate service with a separate meter, basically putting the timer on there, set it for 2 hours, it's going to get something that needs to go on where they can get the button. A few people have a key, for that box, for the timer for that, and that might give it, electric charge. That was the thought of it. The simplified rather than having that bill going. I think right now at the back and the stage is on. You can clarify that if that's not.
Is there a way to figure a charge based on the output of these?
Let me point out, you're going to be using these just a few hours in a total span of a year.
Right.
For just
for like a
performances.
Saturday night concert, it'd be 2, maximum 3. For the winter time, for the lighting, it's not a real long program because it's always so cold. Santa would also use it. He sits on the stage now when he greets the children in December, so we could turn them on for him. So there'd be a little bit of usage there, but again, that's, just a couple of hours, like on a Saturday afternoon, something like that.
I guess my concern is not really a concern. I'm thinking, if we had it as a separate meter and we've essentially got an oven timer on it,
Right.
so that it shuts off. It goes off, that cures that problem, but we know exactly how much electricity is being used, either for a bill for the Chamber of Commerce or for the whoever in the future might use it. Like move down to have a separate service there. Separate service. I don't have a problem.
Look at a separate service could be either way, or you could waive charge.
Charge.
But we don't know that until we have the interact.
Well, but unless Lamar can figure wattage and service, there ought to be a formula somewhere. To figure.
What specific of those that equipment?
could that meter also carry the electric state setup? Josh, do we have an idea of electrical use for the park over a period of a year? Some time frame? I mean, it's $500 for a whole year for everything that we do, then well, I'm gonna say it's absolutely nothing.
I'm not aware of any reading. Not sure that we read that verbatim, maybe. Discuss that.
Yeah, I think the security of the system itself is certainly more important than that was the dollar amount of electricity. I'm just thinking in the future, if we have other entities that want to use the facilities for whatever reason, that are associated. That's what about
We try to make it simple.
So how should we proceed? So how should we proceed with this?
I'd make a motion to go ahead and approve.
Upgrades of the electric system.
Yes, but it
For
is
the
included,
average of
That's
the,
included in this.
it's included in it.
of the speakers.
Yeah, by the time we do this upgrade, it'll take care of all that.
And shall we explore the idea of adding an additional meter? The town would do that.
I don't think so right now.
Okay.
Personally, I don't think it's.
So you have a motion on the floor to approve?
I think we should explore it simply because if you put it in, whether you ever use it or not, it's always good to know how much you're.
Okay.
And if you're gonna do the service anyway, to me, I think it's gonna be minimal. It's not something to charge for, but it's always nice to know.
Okay.
Unless it's double the price.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor and a second to approve the meter proposal. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye. Thank you. Appreciate it. Now, the next item, the electric vehicle charging stations. Let me give some background. Several years ago, we considered this. I think the idea was to put some units at the park and so forth. The decision was that this was an evolving technology and we just didn't feel like it was time to do that. Things have changed in the last 5 years with the increasing use of electric vehicles. Kay, and I and Josh and Lamar Nix, we did have a meeting this week, a Zoom meeting with a company that does the electric charging stations. Also, our mount making department, Carlton, has provided a map showing possible locations. And this is something that many towns and cities are dealing with right now, how to provide this type of service and access to folks who are coming to the communities with electric vehicles. So with that, Kay, I'll let you.
Okay,
Fresh.
good. Thank you.
these
That
ideas.
helped. That took away part of what I was
Oh,
going
I'm
to talk
sorry.
about.
Go ahead.
No, it's all good. So the company that we have identified is EnviroSpark, and they are currently already here on the mountain and have some units that they take care of and service, and have installed some in private homes. And right now they're in the process of I think they're putting in 4 more at Park on Main. So there's a history with the company, and we feel like they're going to do a really good job on this. So we had our meeting with them. And so what we're looking at right now is the chamber would pay for the installation of this. We're looking for grants that will help us pay for this, because some of them are quite expensive if you get the fast charging. So we had talked about Duke, but that might not work because of our relationship with Duke here with town. But there are also some federal grants, and the company has sent me a lot of information for that. So I'll be writing some grants to try to get the funding with it. Lamar also did a great job getting a map to the company already. He sent that to me today and I forwarded it. You have a copy of it there. If you want to talk a little bit about the locations and the installation, I would refer to Lamar on that. He's really the expert. Anyway, we're interested in doing this. It's just another project. We feel like it's really important to really look at taking care of our environment, and this gives us an opportunity to do that and to add that to our town. Do you have questions about locations or installation? And
So it's
Yeah.
like 2 locations.
so 2 locations. Lamar, you want to tell them it's Oak Street and 3rd? If you're empty and have to fill all the way up, most people don't let that happen.
They are. Oh,
Our thought on the locations also is to encourage people to park there. If you're looking for parking and you see some cars parked, it's like, oh, well, there's some parking, we've actually gone out on really busy days, driven around town to see where there are parking places. And Third and back behind 200 Main, there's usually always something.
Yeah.
So hopefully it will encourage people to actually park there and walk into town.
So who do you anticipate? I mean, are you gonna want people who gonna do it in an hour because I'm walking around town, or am I gonna do it overnight because I'm staying at somebody's hotel?
No, well, that's one of the other questions I had when they told me, well, if somebody was on empty and they needed to fill up, it could be like 5 hours. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, we don't need anybody staying there for 5 hours. So there will be a charge. You'll just use your credit card, and they can have it set up where it's only so many hours that you can charge at one time. If you stay beyond the amount of time that you're supposed to be there, let's say you get cut off at 2 hours, 3 hours, and your car is still plugged in and parked there, then there's a fee that gets added to it. So there's signage there, which they will, put, our logo on it, and it will have all this information. So they know if they don't get back there and move their car so somebody else can use it, they're going to get charged another fee. So they've been doing this like everywhere, and they pretty much got it down. I had that same question. What's the point of me doing this if they're going to stay there 5 or 6 hours overnight,
And this is a rollout of a
Mhm.
discussion. This is pretty
Right.
complicated stuff. I talked with Rose Vargas of our Southwestern Planning Commission, and she's monitors transportation issues. And she's aware of these issues in other towns that are grappling with this. Land of Sky RPO is also trying to help promote, electric charging
Right.
stations. So this is something we'll have to really coordinate, plan with the technical end and then
Lots
the
of it.
procedural ends. I can see our law enforcement even being involved if someone does
Absolutely.
not, leave or parks in one of these areas. So
Mhm.
this is I think a good beginning discussion about how to proceed with.
Yeah, I wanted you guys
Addressing
to
this
be
issue.
aware that we're working on it. We don't have numbers yet. $50,000 for a charger is a bit out of the budget. So, we'll see. The company did say if we bought enough of the slower units that, maybe we could get some kind of bargain on the more expensive, faster ones. They also know that there's about to be some federal grant funds that are going to become available for the faster models. So hopefully that would happen soon and we could get in on that.
It's one car per station at a time.
one car per station is my understanding. Do you remember them saying, Lamar?
And Lamar and I were having this conversation. In the future, let's say 10 years from now, if this really becomes the standard for fueling a vehicle, we were talking, we're gonna have to upgrade the grid here, bigger wire, because if everybody's plugging in, it really might change the way we distribute the
A lot of
electrical
residential
system.
places are having these installed as well, you know, for home. So it's interesting.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple of comments. Okay, I'm not picking on you tonight, believe it. I've done a little bit of homework on this, and actually there was a fairly good Wall Street Journal article last week about car charging. And to be honest, I think one thing that doesn't come to mind for the most part is that there are independent companies that actually install these car chargers. It's like a Coke machine.
Mhm.
They own them, they keep them upgraded, and that's one of the problems, is it's such fast-moving technology. You install the slow one, people don't even want to use the slow one anymore. They want to use the fast one, and the fast one's going to get faster. And if you buy the $50,000 model, you're stuck with it. It's going to be outdated by the time you get it installed. And I think across the board nationwide, the better theory is to maybe lease out the space, a parking space, and have these car charging companies come in, set it up at their expense. They make the profit because they charge an overcharge for the electricity, which we charge to them. And it's done. We don't worry. You guys don't worry about it. You don't worry. They keep them upgraded, because if they're not upgraded, people don't use them.
So the
Yeah.
company we've been talking to is a full service company, because I certainly don't know how to maintain a charger or fix it or whatever. So they would maintain the units. We can talk to them about, what happens when this, charger is outdated, and what does that look like with upgrading and things like that. As far as the income from it, we were hoping to keep it in town. It will help us pay for the electricity. We've already talked about putting a meter on it so that we would take on that expense. But then we would also get a little bit of income from that to make sure all that's covered. And that means it stays in town.
And I don't have a problem with that either. Again, it's just.
Your point's really valid, though, about how fast all of this is changing, because it's
and like you say,
very
if you're
fast.
spending big money on these chargers,
You
need
want it to
look at
last
where
a
you're
long
gonna
time.
go, and whether that penny an hour to the
Right.
chamber is going to be worth it in the end.
Right, right. That'll be a question I'll follow up with them on, is, the upgrading as things become outdated. That's a good question. Anything else
We'll
that
continue
you
to
would
work
like
on
for me
this.
to take?
Maybe involve the Public Works Committee.
Yeah, this
We
is
don't.
just sharing it with you to let you know that we are working on it, and that, Lamar's been great helping out with it, and Josh has, been listening to me talk about it. So it's good to finally have a little forward motion on it.
Thank you, Kay.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Okay, that brings us to the end of our agenda, except for a motion to adjourn. Do I have? All in favor? I don't remember that either, Mike.
Oh, we took it
We
off.
took
the
it off, we
agenda.
took it off.
We took it off.
We asked to have it taken off the agenda.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
yes, it will. The two items that he took off will come back. Yes, we have a map at the town and you can, see if it's a private road. And there are some roads that are town roads for partial length or state road, and then they go into, private. But we have 3 different types of roads in Highlands. Town road, private roads, and state roads. So it's kind of confusing. Yeah. Right. Have a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Thank you. We're adjourned.
Too long.